Welcome back to lecture series today, episode 1. And in this episode, we'll be looking at case study assessment and case study exam requirement. Now, you may ask me, why do we need to look at, yes, case study assessment and the requirement? You remember I told you in the last lecture series that ICAN case study is a very different paper that you will write, that you must write to before you qualify. And one of the differences or the uniqueness of this paper is that you need to understand how the paper is being assessed before you can pass. You know, it's because of so many students don't know about these things. That is why they score ridiculous marks like 5%, 10%, and all other ridiculous marks like that. I've seen them before. I've seen lots of students, I deal with students very well. So I've seen lots of students come to me. I can't even talk about my score. I scored 10. A friend of mine scored 5. These are ridiculous marks to score in any professional exam. But the thing is that you need to understand the rudiments, including how the paper is being assessed before you can pass this paper. So one of the things you need to understand is that case study is assessed in a process. It takes a process. The assessment takes a process known as competency-based assessment. We call it CBA, competency-based assessment. And the idea behind competency-based assessment is that it is your understanding, your demonstration of certain skills that will earn you marks. It is either you're able to demonstrate this skill and you get the marks, or you are not and you score 0, which explains why people score ridiculous marks. Don't mind me with that. So it is your understanding of these skills that will earn you marks. So what are these skills? That is what we should be asking ourselves now. What are these skills that I need to demonstrate before I score the marks? So I will tell you about those skills. Now, it may shock you to know that case study exam will only come with 2 key requirements. So it will be requirement 1 and requirement 2. That is what you'll be given. Now, I'm saying 2 requirements. That does not mean it will not have some other requirements. Basically, you will have 2 requirements, but these 2 requirements will have sub-requirements. So at the end of the day, you may have about 20 requirements, 2 major requirements and about 18 sub-requirements. Sometimes you may have up to that you need to look at each of those sub-requirements. Now, but one beautiful thing about these 2 requirements is that it can only test 3 topics. I said 3 topics. We call it analytical skills. It can only test 3 analytical skills. Now, if you go to around November 2006 up to November 2019, go and study the requirement given in these papers. You will see that ICAN has not set more than these 3 requirements or 3 analytical skills that I will show to you now. Now, what are these analytical skills? The first one is business analytical skill. Now, when we talk about business analytical skill, this is where you make use of, models to analyze business and its operation. Okay? The other one is financial statement analytical skill. This is where you make use of your ratios. Okay? And the last one is financial data analytical skill. And this is where you do project appraisal. These are the 3 key analytical skills that will be tested. I call it topics. So we need to understand each of these topics Each of them, we need to understand them separately. Though they will be tested together, but we need to understand them separately. Now, it is sometimes you may have a very strong examiner that will test the three together, and some other time the examiner will only test two. So you should always set your mind that you are answering these three uh, topics or analytical skill. The three will come in the paper. So just expect the three. You know, it can only be less, it cannot be more. So each of these analytical skill will form the requirement. So it is either the examiner decide to say, yes, requirement one, I'm setting financial statement analytical skill in requirement one, and requirement two, I'm setting I'm setting I'm setting business analytical skill and financial data analytical skill. The examiner could combine it anyway. Now, each of these requirements, for the examiner to assess it, the examiner will break each of the requirements into 8 skill boxes. Listen, 8 skill boxes means that under requirement one, you are expected to do 8 things for you to have proper analysis of that requirement. You are expected to do 8 key things. So under requirement two, you are expected to do 8 things again. You are expected to do 8 things again under requirement two. So the total things you are expected to do under the two requirements, making 16. So we call these things boxes. They are called skill boxes. So it is your demonstration of these skill boxes. It means certain skills are tested. They may not be, and the thing is that they may not be required directly in the requirement, but you have to demonstrate these skills. So don't worry about it. I will have to take you through these skill boxes differently under each of these analytical skill. So at the end of the day, you have about 16 skills to demonstrate for you to pass, for you to score good marks under the uh under the two requirements. So the examiner will also be, nice to you by giving you bonus marks. So there will be overall paper. There will be overall skills to be demonstrated under the whole paper. So this I call this overall paper bonus marks. So there will be two major skills to be demonstrated under the overall paper. That is where you know to number your pages, give disclaimer, put disclaimer on your work, the language you use, the format of your report, and all that. So you have two skill boxes to that you have to demonstrate for you to score those marks. Now, there are some other boxes. We call them appendices. Now, there will be appendix for requirement one, appendix for requirement two. You need to give appendix. That is where you do your rough work, your calculation. That is where you draw your model and all that. You should also demonstrate that. So, in other words, there are about 20 skills that you need to demonstrate in order to pass ICAN case study exam. So in the subsequent uh, lecture series, we look at in the subsequent episode we look at what is required under each of these skill boxes. I hope you have learned one or two things in this episode. See you in the next episode.